we're back, and it's less than 26 minutes before I'm out of here for the day. So, and by the way, next week, uh, the mailman returns to the radio. Dave Werpel is going to join me on these airwaves on the morning call. We're going to be looking at a few days before the 4th of July. And I understand, I know Judd's standing here. I don't know if he had a chance. Let me just ask if Jed had interviewed, I believe, Greg Kaplan yesterday. Were you here?
Yeah. Or
Did,
no, I wasn't here yesterday. Is that?
Ask, do me a favor real fast. Ask Jed if he did the interview with Greg Kaplan yesterday, because I'm interested. Greg Kaplan, of course, the owner of Crazy Kaplan Fireworks, and I was going to have Greg on. Greg's like, well, I can come on, but Jed's got me on tomorrow morning, and Greg has some amazing stories to tell about how he came up with Crazy Kaplan Fireworks. I mean, he really. So I don't want to repeat. I don't want to repeat what he may have covered yesterday. Was he on? Hold on, I'm waiting for Joe to come back. Joe, did you get the answer? Was he on?
Yeah, he did the interview.
Okay, and I mean Greg Kaplan. I've known Greg for many, many years. Greg always has a standing joke with me, Joe. My best friend Rick Mossels, he knows Rick. He always we do the fireworks for the pierogi drop, for example, for New Year's Eve. And Greg always hands me the fireworks and says, yeah, hey, this one, let Mossels light it. It's expendable. Greg's a fun guy. Played football, played football at IU Bloomington for Lee Corso. Actually roomed with Mark Cuban. Wow. Yeah, I mean, he's got some great stories. But here's a guy who basically his parents owned a shoe store, a couple of shoe stores, Kaplan Shoes, and he borrowed a truck and started selling fireworks out of his garage. And then when he sold fireworks out of his basement, was hysterical. And I just wish I had the chance, but Jed beat me to it. Of course, Greg is also a sponsor of WJOB. So Greg Kaplan, great stories. But Dave Werpel is going to be on with me next Wednesday, and we'll talk about all the stupid stuff that those of us who listen to WJOB remember doing in the region back around 4th of July. And we'll just cover all the events and all the things coming up with the 4th of July. So that's next week. It's hard to believe, Joe, it's hard to believe the 4th of July is here.
I know. My birthday is actually 4 days after the 4th of July.
Really?
So it's
4 days after the 4th of July. That puts it on, what, a Tuesday?
Yes.
Tuesday. All right.
So I remember last year was my 21st, and we went out to Miami, my parents and a couple of my friends, and then we went on a cruise. And we went to Miami, and it was on a Monday. And, I mean, obviously everything about that experience was amazing.
I've told this story before, but when I was 21, before I became 21, my mother and my friend Rick, another friend, Mark Sana, his sister Denise is the city attorney, city of Whiting. A couple of my friends remember this. When I turned 20, my mother said, when you're 21, I got a secret to tell you. And so she told me this a few times, and I told my friends, and then she told my friends that she had a secret to tell us. So when I became 21, my friends, couldn't wait. What's the big secret? And my mother says, well, that woman that works over at what was the name of the liquor store? I'm trying to think of the name of it now. There was a liquor store in Whiting, and she said, that woman that works at that liquor store, she's a shirt-tail relative of mine. she knew that I was going in there before I was 21, and we never went there. We never went there again because of the big secret. So that's how I celebrated my birthday. And Rick, if he's listening, he'll remember all the details. But again, So you turned 22 this year.
I turned 22 this year.
You turned 22, and I turned 65.
We're close. I'm getting there.
Yeah. You're getting there. You're getting there, and every time you get closer, I get farther. It just, again, 65 years old. This will be my last Pierogi Fest this year, folks, because it's time. It's time to step back, and Not that I don't enjoy doing Pierogi Fest, but it takes about 1,000 hours a year, and it's just time to let somebody else take the reins and move forward.
Have
And
you been coaching a protege?
well, for a long time, there was a lot of belief that my son would probably take it over, but my son is actually, of course, studying for the bar as we speak, and he's going to have quite a very demanding career. So I don't think he's going to be running Pierogi Fest, but he may have some role in it. So we'll see, but we'll get through Pierogi Fest 2025 first.
Okay.
And I also want to mention to listeners one of the really fun things we had last year. People who went to it said it was absolutely hysterical. We did Who's Smarter Than a University of Chicago Physician? So, University of Chicago, one of the great research hospitals and research universities in the United States. And for years, I've gone to University of Chicago and gotten to
Beautiful
know their
campus.
doctors. Absolutely, got to know their doctors though, and just had this idea in my mind that I was going to do this game show. And finally, one of them said, "Oh, for God's sakes, just do it already. You've got your Pierogi Fest. We'll do it." And so we did it last year. Jed was one of the players, and I don't know if he knows it yet, but he's going to be one of the players again this year. And so is Matt Schufert from Hard Rock Casino, and others are going to be playing against these University of Chicago physicians. And for listeners and viewers to understand this, so you've got the local team playing against these doctors. Now, these doctors are some of the standouts in medicine. All right. There's one, for example, who basically helped to perfect the most common treatment now used for treating leukemia, which cost one of my brothers his life. So these are guys that are, David Rubin is considered by the Colitis and Crohn's Foundation to be the number one physician on earth when it comes to treating ulcerative colitis and Crohn's. Adam Sifu is until recently, he's kind of stepped back now on his teaching role, but he was the assistant dean for academics of the medical school and won the Pritzker best professor award for like 18 years straight. These are guys at the top of their game, and they're playing against guys like Jed, and they get asked questions about pop culture. All right. And Jed and his team have to answer questions. Matt Schufert have to answer questions about medicine. And it's hysterical. It really is hysterical. It was a lot of fun. We're
What
going
is
to
it,
do
like
that
first to
again.
three or something?
No, actually, I think they went through 25 questions last year. And if I remember correctly, if Jed's out there, he'll know. The local team won by 1 point.
Wow.
By 1 point. So we'll do that on Sunday, July 27th at 1 p.m. on the main stage. And again, you're talking about some physicians that are renowned physicians. They're at the top of their field. And then they're being asked questions like name 3 songs by Taylor Swift. I mean, it's very, very funny. And it's a lot of fun. And then you've got, last year it was Judge Cantar, Judge McDermott, Mark Chase from the Times, Jed, and Matt Schufert, and they're answering questions about, how many bones are there in the body, or name which blood type is universal blood type. So they're answering medical questions. The UFC physicians are answering pop culture questions. And it's just very, very funny. Although Dr. Adam Sifu points out that, and Blaise Polite, who grew up in Northwest Indiana. He played last year. I believe he's playing. Dr. Polite is going to play again this year. But they're answering questions that are pretty darn funny. Although Adam Sifu points out, he said, he was the one that kind of challenged me and said, "Oh, just hold the darn thing already. I'll get you the team." He pointed out to me, he goes, "You forget something. I have a son and daughter about the same ages as your kids." So he said, "Yes, I'm, a University of Chicago physician and a professor of medicine and all that fun stuff, but I've got kids that keep me in touch with reality." So it's
I
fun.
don't, I I think that's funny, and it's definitely going to be a good time. That would be something fun, especially with Jed being a participant to maybe live stream for.
You know what? I think we need to live stream it this year. I think we do.
Well, we're trying to start up on YouTube and on Twitch, hopefully sometime soon.
Yeah, in fact,
as we are expanding.
I'm told that as of today, this entire broadcast will be available on YouTube in segments.
Yep, Matt and I will be cutting it up and posting the best parts of it.
There you go. So that's really exciting. So you'll go to YouTube, you'll look under WJOB Network, and you'll have a whole listing of shows, and it'll be fun to be able to, if you miss part of the show or you wonder what it was that Mad Max said today, you can back it up and you can go on YouTube and see what he actually said. So that'll be fun as well.
It'll be a lot easier, and we're trying to expand and not only like our radio station, but like our demographic too, So.
Well, again, I had this conversation yesterday when I was at University of Chicago. I was talking to the nurse before the doctor came in, and the nurse, we started talking, and I just said to her, I said, "Can I ask you a question? When you get in your car, what station do you listen to?" And she said, I don't even know if I have the station set in my car on my radio anymore. She said, all I do is I get in my car and right away my phone syncs and I listen to stuff off my phone. So if I want music, I listen to, whatever, Pandora, or some playlist. She said, if I want podcasts, I listen through my radio. And she said that when she commutes to University of Chicago, she listens to podcasts basically off her phone, which is, synced basically to her car radio. So that is certainly a growing trend by a lot of individuals. So this idea of podcasting the show makes sense.
Right. I mean, I don't know if you've heard of CarPlay or if your car has CarPlay.
Oh, absolutely. It does.
That one, my car automatically syncs to that. And then if you have like a Spotify premium account, which most people, at least my age do, it automatically starts playing your songs. And I mean, they're even now incorporating like actual visuals and like I'm blanking on the word, but like you can, visuals as well. Like
right.
You can see the podcast as well as hear it.
Right.
So they're basically just turning into like another small YouTube.
Yeah, I get criticized all the time by my son and my daughter, my son especially, who says, Dad, quit buying music for Apple Music. You have a Spotify account, Pandora, you have all those. Yes, I think I have 2,000 songs on my phone that I paid for. And my son is like, Dad, nobody in their right mind does this. But
only if you could return them. I mean, how much money you'd probably get back.
Well, now I will say a lot of these, though, I downloaded off of albums too. So, basically off of CDs. So how many do I have? It doesn't even tell me anymore. But I believe it's close to 2,000. But a lot of them I didn't pay for because I got them off of an album or a CD that I downloaded. But yeah, I've kind of figured that out. Matt knows that I'm a huge Simon and Garfunkel fan, so he gave me a website that had a playlist that has 400 versions of Sounds of Silence because I only have 27 on my phone. So yeah, and Matt, my wife used to really think a lot of Matt until he gave me that list. Matt, are you mic'd on as well?
I'll put it on.
Okay, yeah. Matt, I was talking to Joe about my playlists, and when you gave me the site that had all the Sounds of Silence, songs by Simon and Garfunkel, I said my wife really liked you until you gave me that list.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, after that is like who Matt who? Yeah, no. But we're talking about downloading songs that's a thing of the past. You buy a subscription to Spotify or somebody like that.
Yeah, I know someone so one of my family members, they they downloaded a bunch, like they bought and downloaded a bunch of songs from like the iTunes store, and now they could just pay $10, like $10 a month to get all the songs.
Yes, well, if you remember, I have 2,000 songs, 1,992 to be exact. There it is. So just under 2,000. However, a lot of those are albums or CDs that I basically downloaded, so I didn't pay for 2,000 songs. I did buy a lot of those albums and then added them to my iTunes library. But yeah, I rarely use the iTunes library anymore. I have to say I'm actually coming into the 21st century slowly. So there you go.
Nice.
845-1100 is the number to call if you've got questions or comments. We had some pretty busy phone lines this morning, but this last 10 minutes we're open right now so we can take a caller. And again, I want to thank Paul Goddard, Region News Source, for giving us the information about that explosion last night. I've got some more from him, actually. He says that arriving units from the Hammond Fire Department encountered heavy fire outside the building, which was quickly contained. The explosion appears to come from the process at the plant, which burns off volatile organic compounds, VOCs. While there was significant damage to the plant, we're happy to report there are no injuries, and all employees are accounted for. The machinery or malfunction/explosion is still under investigation. Again, fast response from the Hammond Fire Department with multiple crews and apparatus controlled and extinguished the fire almost immediately, and that is actually attributable to one of my friends, Fire Chief Bernie Grisolia. So, good morning, Bernie. So you had a busy evening, and I talked to Bernie last night. So this was obviously before the explosion, but look, we talked about cutting costs, and I want to make clear when you talk about cutting the cost of government, there's some things that you don't cut. Okay, we talked to Marine Pete this morning. Joe, you've never heard of him before, but he's a great guy. The military, police, and fire, you've got to properly fund them. People drive by a fire station and, oh, those guys are just sitting around. Yeah, they're sitting around until there's a call like this one last night. And thankfully nobody got injured, and they were able to put it out very quickly. And I know that plant was the old American National Can plant. It's a tin plant. I think they still make tin cans. So, everything from soup cans to vegetable cans, that's what they're making over there. And so I have a little bit of an idea of what may have now exploded, the VOC's system. But again, it's been a long, long time since I've been in that plant. But I'm glad that everybody was able to get out safely, and nobody got injured, and no firefighter got injured. And again, when you talk about funding police and fire, that's where you need to fund 100%. That's why this guy that's running for mayor of New York is out of his mind, that he's going to cut $1.5 billion out of the budget for police protection for the city of New York. The guy's just totally nuts. And if voters elect him, well, God help them all, because it's going to be a disaster, although I don't think he's going to get elected, given his anti-Israel stand with the sizable Jewish population in New York City. So we'll see what happens in the general election, but it's just scary. At the same time, you look at ways to cut government expense instead of spending all this money on some of the things that we have, and spending or figuring out new ways, I should say, to raise revenues. Maybe we have to take a look at cutting expenses as well. And I'm not targeting any community in Northwest Indiana or any unit of government. My point is that overall we have to be prepared to not kick the can down the road. So, Joe, you're a young guy. You're going to be 22 years old, right? So, look, if we just keep on spending money and saying, well, we're going to pass it on to your generation, as Matt said this morning, you're not going to make $30 an hour. You're going to make $15 an hour. And if you make $60,000, it's a great job. But the reality is you're going to be making $30,000 a year, because half of it's going to be eaten up in taxes, and that's the problem. I mean, how do you feel about it?
There's really only one way to describe it. It's worrisome, obviously.
And you're 20, and you're going to be 22 years old, and you're describing it as worrisome. And to me, that's a little scary in its own right, that you and Matt and Adriana have to worry about the taxes and the tax burden that we're creating as a society to put on your generation.
Yeah, and at least the way that I think about it is, I mean, I'm even having friends now that are really starting their life, and they're starting to think about their own kids and their own families. And yeah, like, we're young, but that's the reality of it, right? Like, some people start families early, and now they have to start worrying about their kids the same way that you guys are worrying about us. And if we just keep passing it along, obviously nothing's going to get better. And then what, 15 an hour turns into 750, and then I mean, I don't even know where we go from there.
Yeah, again, I believe that Indiana and certainly Illinois would be well served if they passed a law that said every time they pass a new tax that there has to be a commission that looks for some sort of savings. Again, people who come up with these jackass ideas that, well, we're going to save money, we're going to cut the cost of police and fire. Well, they're morons, okay? Because you need police and fire protection.
Right.
You need it. You don't cut the very things that you need. Again, people, cut the military. Are there savings in the military? I'm sure there are. But this idea, well, we'll just cut a bunch of money out of the military, well, that's not going to work.
Do you have something in mind?
Do I have something specifically in mind? No. My point is, though, is that what I do have in mind is I think that you should have there should be some sort of standing commission to look at government efficiency. I was part of actually a couple of efficiency drives in this area years ago, and most of the cuts never transpired. They talked about combining certain county positions, for example. They got rid of most of the township assessors, but it stopped at that. It froze, and they never went through with a lot of the cuts. And I'm not saying that every cut is justifiable by any means. I think that municipalities locally, some of them have done a very good job of cutting costs over the years. As I pointed out earlier this morning, the city of Hammond, when McDermott became mayor, he had 4 department heads in public works. He's got 1 now. Okay, so you combine public works into 1 department. You don't have to have a separate street department, a separate a park department, a separate recycling, I think it was. So you didn't have to have all those departments. You could combine it into 1. And that made sense. But, my point is that if we're going to saddle your generation with this added debt or with these added taxes, then we should also have some sort of a process in place that automatically kicks in that says, let's look at seeing how we can save money. All right. Is there an opportunity? Some communities, for example, it's 90 degrees out today, but there are some communities that do a better job of snow plowing and salting their streets than others around here. Some of them use the beet juice that basically is sprayed down in advance, and it basically provides a protection from ice forming for a longer period of time than just throwing salt. Maybe what we need to do is maybe it's not even an efficiency, it's a best practices commission that exists to protect the taxpayer from undue taxes. And again, I'm not saying I have all the answers by any means, but I'm saying that there should be some sort of a commission or process to at least provide your generation and mine the knowledge that we did something to protect them. If we don't have a way of cutting costs, then so be it. All right? But at least let generations, present and future generations, know that we're doing something to control those costs. Because right now it's just spinning out of control. It's like, okay, we need more tax money. Let's add some additional taxes to, gasoline, cigarettes, fireworks, you name it. We're taxing everything already. I had Matt Schufert in here from Hard Rock Casino. Ask him sometime about the amount of taxes that the casinos are paying. And when we put casinos in place, when we put the lottery in place, when we put all these different entities in place, Illinois, of course, the legalization of marijuana, we said, the tax money that's going to be generating is going to be so much that we're going to be able to reduce other taxes. It's never, ever happened. That's my point.
So I have a question. I'm sorry, it might veer a little off track from the main point of your conversation, but if I remember correctly from a previous production or a previous day of our show, not specifically this show, but a day, but when we were talking about, like, it was around the convention time when they announced the convention in Gary, the convention center,
right?
That Gary was getting, or the Hard Rock was getting, like, I don't want to, like, say a number that's wrong, but an exponential amount of money, right, funded to them by, like, the city or, like, the town or something like that.
No, actually, it's the other way around. So Hard Rock Casino is largely going to spend, they pay a huge amount of tax money, and some of that tax money is going to be diverted to help pay for the convention center.
Okay.
So, but once again, the argument, do we need a convention center? All right. Is it necessary? I think the Hard Rock location makes sense. All right. I do think that because they have the money, they have the wherewithal to do it. But the question still remains, do we need a convention center?
I don't think so.
Do we need, and we talked about that before. I mean, look, convention centers don't do so well in secondary markets. They do very well in primary markets. People want to go to Chicago. They want to go to Las Vegas. They want to go to Orlando. They want to go to those destinations. But do they want to go to a secondary location? It's not as strong. So there's arguments on that. But once again, there should be some sort of efficiency process just to make sure that before we spend any more money, before we pass any more taxes, that we're looking to see if there's some efficiencies. And again, just to clarify, never talking about cutting costs when it comes to police and fire, because you have to have those. And with that, we'll wrap it up for this week. This is the end of this installation of this edition, I should say, this edition of the Morning Call on WJOB 1230 M, 104.7 FM, the TuneIn app, and JED TV. We'll be back here next Wednesday, and joining me in the studio will be Dave Warple. We'll talk about all the different things coming up for 4th of July, all the events in all the cities and towns in Northwest Indiana, and we'll have some humorous conversation about some of the things we've done in the past to celebrate the 4th of July. So keep it tuned right here all day, all week to WJLB, and up next is the Town of Dyer Show. Take care.